The Sterling family law office hadn't changed in 20 years. Same pretentious oil paintings, same leather chairs that cost more than most cars, same air of old money and even older prejudices. I adjusted my simple gray blazer, deliberately chosen to look unremarkable, and waited for the family trust meeting to begin. Isabel. My Uncle James's voice dripped with false sympathy as he entered. I'm surprised you came. I smiled softly, thinking of the documents waiting in my briefcase. Wouldn't miss it for the world, Uncle James. My cousin Michael swaggered in next, followed by his sister Diana. Both held executive positions at Sterling Industries, our family's company. Positions they'd received through birthright rather than merit. Look who decided to grace us with her presence, Diana smirked, settling into a chair. How's that investment thing going? Still playing with penny stocks? If only they knew that investment thing was actually Blackwood Capital, one of the most powerful private equity firms in the country. But I'd learned long ago to keep my success hidden. It made acquiring their company shares so much easier. I manage, I replied quietly. The family lawyer Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. Now that everyone's here, let's begin discussing the terms of the Sterling Family Trust. I checked my watch. 9:50 a.m. In exactly 10 minutes, the financial world would explode with news about Sterling Industries' new majority shareholder. As you know, Mr. Harrison continued, the late Mr. Sterling, your grandfather, established this trust to preserve family wealth and ensure Sterling Industries remains under proper management. Proper management. I almost laughed. Under my uncle's leadership, Sterling Industries had been bleeding market share for years. Only creative accounting kept the shareholders from realizing how bad things really were. Uncle James straightened his Italian silk tie. Let's cut to the chase. The trust beneficiaries will be myself, my children Michael and Diana, and my sister Catherine's children, except for Isabel, of course. I raised an eyebrow. Except for me? Well, he smiled condescendingly, the trust is meant for family members who've proven themselves. Who understand real business. Michael snickered. Yeah, not someone who walked away from a VP position to play entrepreneur. I remembered that day clearly. 5 years ago, when I refused to cover up Uncle James's creative accounting, he tried to silence me with a cushy VP role. When I declined and started my own investment firm instead, I became the family disappointment. The trust requires beneficiaries to hold significant positions in Sterling Industries, Mr. Harrison explained apologetically. Given your current situation. I understand completely, I said calmly, checking my watch again. 9:55 a.m. Diana couldn't resist twisting the knife. Don't feel bad, Isabel. Not everyone's cut out for the corporate world. Some people are just meant for smaller things. My phone buzzed silently, a message from my CEO. Everything's ready. Press release goes out in 5 minutes. You know, I said casually, it's interesting you mention corporate positions. Have any of you checked the company's major shareholders recently? Uncle James frowned. What are you talking about? Just curious. As someone interested in penny stocks. Michael rolled his eyes. The major shareholders are family members and institutional investors. Nothing that concerns you. Are you sure about that? I pulled out my laptop. Because according to these records, over the past 3 years, a company called Blackwood Capital has been quietly acquiring Sterling Industries stock. Uncle James's face tightened. Blackwood Capital? Never heard of them. Really? They're quite significant in private equity. Currently holding about 48% of Sterling Industries shares. Diana laughed nervously. That's impossible. We would know if someone bought that many shares. Would you? When's the last time you actually reviewed the shareholder registry? Or are you too busy using the corporate jet for personal vacations? Her face went pale. How do you know about Dash? I know everything, Diana. Every misused company fund, every covered-up loss, every inflated earnings report. It's amazing what people will tell you when they think you're nobody. My phone buzzed again. 9:59 a.m. Uncle James stood up, his face reddening. What game are you playing, Isabel? No game, Uncle James. Just business. Real business. I turned my laptop around, showing them the prepared press release. In about 30 seconds, Blackwood Capital will announce its final acquisition of Sterling Industries shares, bringing its total ownership to 51%. The room fell silent. Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses, peering at the screen. But, who owns Blackwood Capital? I smiled, standing up and smoothing my blazer. I do. The clock struck 10 a.m. Phones around the room began buzzing frantically as the news broke. I watched their faces transform from confusion to shock to horror as realization dawned. You can't do this, Uncle James whispered. Actually, I can. And I have. While you were all busy mocking my small investment venture, I was building something bigger than Sterling Industries could ever dream of being. Diana grabbed her phone, scrolling frantically. This is a mistake. This can't be real. Oh, it's very real. Blackwood Capital now controls 7 Fortune 500 companies. Sterling Industries is just the latest addition to our portfolio. I opened my briefcase, pulling out a stack of documents. And these are the records of every questionable decision you've made in the past 5 years. Every dollar misappropriated, every report falsified. Michael slumped in his chair. Why go to all this trouble? Because 5 years ago you taught me an important lesson about family and business. When I discovered the accounting fraud and tried to report it, you all turned against me, made me an outsider, called me naive for wanting to do things ethically. I placed the documents on the table. So I decided to do things my way. Build something honest, something real. Now I own the company you thought I wasn't good enough to help run. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. The trust meeting can wait, I interrupted. We have more pressing matters to discuss. Like the emergency board meeting happening in an hour, where the new majority shareholder will be restructuring company leadership. Uncle James found his voice. You'd destroy your own family's legacy? No, Uncle James. I'm going to save it. Starting with a complete audit of all financial records from the past 5 years. I checked my watch one final time. The SEC will be particularly interested in those offshore accounts you thought no one knew about. The Sterling Industries boardroom buzzed with tension an hour later. I sat at the head of the table, my grandfather's old seat, watching my family file in like condemned prisoners approaching the gallows. The press release had done its work. Their phones hadn't stopped ringing since the announcement. Before we begin, I said, opening my laptop, I should introduce Marcus Chin, Blackwood Capital's Chief Legal Officer, and Sarah Williams, our Head of Corporate Restructuring. Uncle James's face darkened as my executives entered. You bring outsiders to a family matter. Sterling Industries stopped being just a family matter the moment you started defrauding shareholders, I replied calmly. Now, let's discuss the changes taking place effective immediately. Diana jumped up. You can't just walk in here and dash. I can and I will. I nodded to Sarah, who began distributing folders. Inside you'll find your termination agreements. The severance packages are generous considering the circumstances. Michael flipped through his folder, face paling. Termination? You're firing us. Not exactly. I'm offering you the chance to resign quietly before the audit reveals exactly how much company money you've been funneling into your personal accounts. The room fell silent. Uncle James's hands trembled as he opened his folder. How long? He asked quietly. How long have you been planning this? I leaned back, remembering the night 5 years ago when I discovered their fraud. Since the day you told me I'd never understand real business. Remember that board meeting, Uncle James? When I brought evidence of financial misconduct. He wouldn't meet my eyes. We were protecting the company. No, you were protecting yourselves. You were so convinced of your own superiority that you couldn't imagine anyone else running things better. I pulled up a presentation on the boardroom screens. Let's look at what your protection has done to Sterling Industries. Charts and graphs appeared, showing the company's true financial state. Years of declining market share masked by creative accounting. Millions in misappropriated funds. Failed projects covered up with falsified reports. By God, someone whispered. The company's real value is less than half what shareholders believe, I continued. You've been running it like a personal piggy bank while driving it into the ground. Diana's composure cracked. You're exaggerating. The numbers can't be dash. The numbers don't lie, Diana. Unlike you. I clicked to the next slide. Here's your personal account in the Cayman Islands. Interesting deposits for someone on a VP's salary. She slumped in her chair, defeated. Now, I continued, you have two options. Sign the resignation agreements, return the misappropriated funds and walk away with your severance and freedom. Or, Michael prompted. Or I turn everything over to the SE and let them decide your fate. Uncle James finally spoke, his voice hollow. You would send your own family to prison. You stopped treating me like family the moment I refused to join your schemes. I met his eyes across the table. Remember what you said. Blood means nothing in business. Well, congratulations, you taught me that lesson perfectly. Sarah began collecting signed agreements while Marcus outlined the terms of their departures. I watched my family, these people who had mocked and dismissed me for years, sign away their control of Sterling Industries with shaking hands. As they stood to leave, Diana paused. What about the trust? Grandfather wanted Grandfather wanted Sterling Industries to thrive. I cut her off. He built something remarkable and you all nearly destroyed it with your greed. I smiled slightly. Besides, the trust was meant for successful family members, remember? After they left, I sat alone in the boardroom, looking at my grandfather's portrait on the wall. He had built Sterling Industries from nothing, turning a small manufacturing company into a corporate empire. What would he think of today's events? My phone buzzed, a message from my mother who had stayed out of the family business after my father died. Just saw the news. Your father would be proud. I smiled, remembering Dad's words before he passed away. Someone needs to save the company from James eventually. Be ready when the time comes. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of change. I brought in new management, implemented modern systems, and began the painful process of revealing Sterling Industries' true financial state to shareholders. The stock price took an initial hit, but transparency was crucial for rebuilding trust. 1 month after the takeover, I received an unexpected visitor. My grandmother, Uncle James's mother and the family matriarch, appeared in my office unannounced. Quite a coup you've pulled off, she said, settling into a chair. James is furious, of course. The whole family's in chaos. Are you here to criticize my methods, grandmother? He smiled, surprising me. On the contrary. I've been waiting for someone to knock James off his pedestal for years. He never understood what your grandfather built this company for. I raised an eyebrow. And what was that? To create something lasting. Something honest. She reached into her bag, pulling out an old envelope. Your grandfather left this for you. Said to give it to you when you were ready. Inside was a letter dated just before his death. Dear Isabel. If you're reading this, you've finally done what I couldn't, saved Sterling Industries from those who would destroy it with their greed. I watched you grow up questioning everything, always seeking the truth, and I knew you would be the one to set things right. I'm sorry for the burden this places on you, but I saw in you what I saw in myself when I first built this company, the desire to create something meaningful, not just profitable. The trust they're so proud of, it was always meant for you. Not because of your name but because of who you are. Love, grandfather. I looked up at my grandmother who was watching me carefully. You knew. Of course I knew. Why do you think I never stopped you from building Blackwood Capital? Someone had to save this company, and it certainly wasn't going to be James or his children. The next day I called a company-wide meeting. Every employee from executives to maintenance staff gathered in the main auditorium. Sterling Industries has lost its way, I began. For years, this company has been run by people who cared more about their own wealth than about building something meaningful. That ends today. I outlined my vision for the company's future: transparent operations, ethical practices, and genuine innovation. No more hidden accounts, no more falsified reports, no more treating the company like a family ATM. Some of you may have heard rumors about why I left 5 years ago, I continued. The truth is, I discovered serious financial misconduct and tried to report it. For that, I was ostracized, mocked, and pushed out of the family business. The auditorium was silent, hundreds of eyes fixed on me. But I didn't give up. Instead, I built something bigger. Something better. And now, Sterling Industries has a chance to become what it should have been all along. A company that succeeds through innovation and integrity, not fraud and favoritism. Over the next year, Sterling Industries transformed. We launched new products, rebuilt client relationships, and restored the company's reputation. The stock price not only recovered but soared as investors recognized the genuine changes taking place. Uncle James and my cousins disappeared to their vacation homes, living off their severance packages. Sometimes I heard rumors about them complaining to anyone who would listen about how I'd stolen their birthrights. But I was too busy to care. Sterling Industries was thriving, Blackwood Capital continued to grow, and I was finally building something my grandfather would have been proud of. One evening as I worked late in my office, I received an unexpected email from Michael. "I get it now. What you were trying to tell us 5 years ago. We should have listened." I didn't reply. Some lessons come too late to matter. Instead, I walked to the window looking out at the city where I'd spent 5 years building my revenge in secret. The family that had once dismissed me as a failure now watched from the sidelines as I transformed their company into something greater than they could have imagined. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about redemption, not just mine but the company's. About taking something broken and making it whole again. On my desk sat 2 framed photos. One of my grandfather on the day he founded Sterling Industries, and one from the day I took control of Blackwood Capital. 2 generations of builders, separated by time but united in purpose. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what others built, but building something better than they ever could. And as I sat down to review plans for Sterling Industries' next expansion, I knew this was just the beginning. The family trust they'd kept me from? It was nothing compared to what I'd built on my own. Sometimes being left out is the greatest gift of all. It forces you to create something that's truly yours.